Good morning, students. We are in second chapter, that is the end of bipolarity, and so far we have discussed about USSR. What is Soviet Union? So the Soviet Union came into existence from 1917 when there was a revolution in Russia. After that, this USSR was formed. This USSR has been made up of by 15 other countries, and Russia was the head of the country. And this USSR basically the member of the USSR were basically from East European countries. So USSR was the second most developed country in the world after USA. Everything has been manufactured in within their own country in USSR, from a pin to the cars and everything. And this USSR was also have military power. USSR also have biological weapons, nuclear weapons, everything was there like USA, but compared to USA, USSR was a little bit down. And the quality, whatever they manufactured, the quality did not compare to the USA. We cannot compare its quality to the USA because USA was far better than USSR. But after USA, it was only USSR who can develop, who can manufacture everything within their own country, and is the second most developed country of the world. But the main problem in USSR was that USSR followed socialism. There was a communist party has ruled USSR. The ruling party was communist, and they followed socialism. Socialism means the state control the wealth of whole country, and the state will divide or distribute those wealth within the citizen. Now USSR, the citizen of USSR had they do not have a right to speak, because everything was controlled by USSR. We cannot say it's a democratic country, because in a democratic country people can speak, but in USSR the people do not have right to speak. So if they wanted to speak, if they wanted to raise their voice, they used to make cartoons, they used to make drawings and all, so that they can raise their voice. But people were against. Now slowly or gradually people were against the rule of the communist party. So the people of the USSR have revolted against the government of USSR. They wanted freedom. Now we will discuss how USSR has been disintegrated and who are responsible for the disintegration. So if USSR has been, because I have already discussed this, that this chapter is also the result of Cold War, because the Cold War has been happened between the two superpower, that is USSR and the USA, a capitalist country and a socialist country. Now if USSR disintegrated, if USSR were divided into different parts, those 15 other countries wanted independence from USSR, then what will happen? So this is the result. Now we will discuss Gorbachev and the disintegration of USSR. Mikhail Gorbachev, who had become General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union in 1985, sought to reform this system. So Mikhail Gorbachev, he was the General Secretary of the Communist Party of USSR, of Soviet Union in 1985, and he also wanted reform in USSR. So he started his reform in USSR, but the common people of the USSR was against this reform, or they were not against this reform. They also wanted freedom, they also wanted independence. So they have started their own reform. There were agitation, there were meetings, everything was going on in USSR, and Mikhail Gorbachev was busy in his own reform. He did not intervene in other common people's reform, and the common people of the USSR thought that the reform which has been started by the Gorbachev was very, very slow. And one of the most important point is that Gorbachev did not intervene. He did not interfere in common people's reform, the citizen of that country's reforms. He only focused on his reform, and his reform was very, very slow. People wanted independence as early as possible. People wanted reform as early as possible. Because of his Gorbachev's reform, people were not having, they think that they were not having that much of time. So they have started their own reform, and Gorbachev failed to interfere in that reform. This is one of the most important reason for the disintegration of USSR, being the General Secretary of the Communist Party, when he himself had started a reform in USSR. But people, the common people, they did not support Gorbachev. And Gorbachev also did not interfere in common people's reform. Common people used to say that his reform was very, very slow. That is the reason, this is one of the most important reason of the disintegration of USSR. Gorbachev initiated the policies of economic and political reform and democratization within the country. The reforms were opposed by the leader within the Communist Party itself. So he has started the reform, political, economic, or the democratic reform. He himself has started reform. But the member of that Communist Party, he was the General Secretary of Communist Party, and other members of the Communist Party were against him. They were also saying that he was very slow. They were also not supporting, though they were the member of the same party. So he did not get any support either from the party member or from the common people. So a coup took place in 1991 that was encouraged by the Communist Party hardliners. A coup. Coup means a sudden seizure of power from government. Seizure of power. Like for example, there was a Communist Party in USSR. So certainly the leader of the Communist Party changed into another person who was not the member of the Communist Party. That is called coup. So in USSR also a coup happened in 1991. A sudden seizure of the power of government. Boris Yeltsin emerged as a national hero in opposing this coup. He has been power began to shift from the Soviet centers to the Republic. Now we have already discussed that there are 15 other members in USSR, 15 other republic countries, 15 other countries who formed USSR. Now a coup, because of this coup, Boris Yeltsin became the major hero of that coup. He has seized the power of the government. Now the common people, not the common people, but the other republic countries who has formed this USSR, they wanted freedom from USSR. They wanted independence. They wanted to have their own government in USSR. They does not wanted to remain under USSR's Communist Party. So this coup has happened. In December 1991, under the leadership of Yeltsin, Russia, Ukraine and Belarus, the three major republics of the USSR declared that Soviet Union was disbanded. So the three countries under the leadership of Yeltsin, the three countries were Russia, Ukraine and Belarus. They declared themselves as republic, and they declared that USSR was disbanded. They will not follow the rules and regulation, the government of USSR. They have disbanded USSR. Capitalism and democracy were adopted at the basis of the post-Soviet republics, because USSR was a socialist country, and these three countries, these three republics who got independence, who declared that they will not follow Soviet USSR, they adopted different policy, that is the capitalism and the democratic way, in a democratic way. So because of this coup, and another one was Gorbachev's reform, these two are the most important feature, or these two are the most important reason for the disintegration of USSR. Russia now accepted as the successor state of the Soviet Union. Now there was these major three countries, they declared themselves as a republic. They are not part of Russia anymore now. Other smaller countries wanted to remain under Soviet Russia or Soviet Union. They wanted to remain. Okay, so now the other countries who were part of Soviet Russia at that time, who were part of Soviet Union, they have been controlled by Russia itself. Now Russia became the successor of all those other countries, and those who got independence, they have started their own government. They started following their own capitalism and the democratic government. But the countries who were under Soviet Russia, they have been now dominated by the Russia was now accepted as the successor of the state of the Soviet Union. So the major reason for the disintegration of USSR was one, Gorbachev's reform, which was very slow, and people were not supporting his reform, and the member of the Communist Party were also against his reform. Second, a coup which took place in 1991, and the Boris Yeltsin, he became the national hero at that time. Now other countries who formed that USSR, they wanted nationalism, they wanted freedom, they wanted independence from Soviet Russia. And in 1991, the three countries, who were the three countries? Russia, Ukraine and Belarus. They needed independence, and they themselves have started a new set of government, that is capitalism and the socialist government. Now they were following their capitalism and democratic government in another way. They did not want it to become the part of the socialist country. So the next topic here is why did the Soviet Union disintegrated? We have already discussed Gorbachev's role and Boris Yeltsin's role, and in our next class we will discuss the reason. These two are also the most important reason, but there are a few other reasons also which has been the major because of which there was a disintegration of Soviet Russia. Disintegration means the 15 other countries who have formed this USSR, they have their own government, they have their own democracy in their country. They wanted independence so that they can form their own government. So till then, take care, goodbye, bye bye.